forefront of fostering talent and professional growth, we empower each individual and celebrate every culture. Focusing on the Saudi and GCC regions, we extend our reach across 4 continents and 9 global cities. With a vibrant team of over 250 employees and 300 expert trainers, we're sculpting the landscape of professional development. We deliver more than 25,000 professional experiences every year, with over 1,500 courses as face-to-face and live virtually. Our alumni are transforming workplaces and leading change, pioneering innovations that resonate, inspire, and deliver, creating success stories, one professional at a time. True transformation begins at home, in the hearts and minds of each individual. At LEORON, people first is not just a phrase, it's our promise, our commitment, and our journey.
Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, it is the CEO series. And I am excited today to talk to a good friend of mine, George Gruevski.
Gruevski.
Vice President of Strategic Operations at LEORON Institute. Many years experience at driving organizational growth and operational excellence. Has a master's degree in law, multiple certifications across the globe, beginning his journey at LEORON in sales and business development, and progressed in leading this company to the level it's at now, a major player in the GCC region as it relates to developing professionals. So with that, Gigi, how are you?
I'm real good, and great to see you. I'm doing well, and thanks for inviting me for a chat. Always good to see you.
It's nice to have you. Last time we spoke was right before Christmas. We spent some time when you were in Dubai on a business trip, and we spent some time there. So your career has always intrigued me. I mean, you're the vice president at LEORON. LEORON is as I said, is a major player. How did that start? Your master's in law, coming out of university. How did you get to the level that you're at now?
Well, if you would have asked me while I was doing my law studies what I was going to do, there was tons of questions around that period, as I'm sure any young graduate is. I was born and raised in Skopje, Macedonia. I had a vision for a brief period of time that I could potentially have the skills to pursue law as a career, but then again, for some reason, it didn't excite me as much, especially with pursuing a law career locally here in Macedonia. It wasn't really something that really motivated me long term. Okay. As soon as I finished my studies, I took a bit of an early sabbatical of sorts, and I went to New York City. It kind of had been my dream, and spent a couple of months there. I had worked starting from being a regular busboy to then working up to a assistant general manager at a restaurant that's still doing very good today in Manhattan. Yeah, they are. And that kind of sort of set me up to what I felt was a more broader international career and impact that I wanted to make. Going back to Macedonia afterwards, it was probably by a stroke of luck to find an opportunity with a company that had been quite new, but I heard great things of them being, established internationally, working with exhibitions, working with trainings in the GCC region in Europe. So that immediately got me sort of excited, and I interviewed with our now CEO. Yeah. And literally after a short talk, I was like, okay, this is the place for me. And I have never looked back 1 minute since. It's been 13 years. Started off with sales and business development, like you mentioned. I think that type of skill set that I learned in doing sales for many years, I think I'm still active. I love working with clients, even to this day. And then, it sort of traversed into being a team leader of sort, managing a department, managing the major sales team that's here in Macedonia, and then traversing into executive management as a managing director of our European office, and now VP of strategic operations for all our offices across the globe. So that's kind of been the path, and like I said, even more exciting things to come.
Yeah, I never knew the New York angle as it relates to the restaurant business. So, and sometimes you get something in your blood. You're working there and you're thinking, could I do this? Could I open my own piece in doing this? But you decided to go back and you completely did a U-turn and went in a different direction. Did you give any thoughts when you moved back home to maybe a restaurant business there, or you were just trying to find yourself?
You said it correctly. When you're in that field, you're sort of the only mindset is like, okay, how do I open my own place? And many of my friends that are still there are doing that and have their own places developed. They're very, very successful. I had that love of the city and love of the lifestyle that I wanted to experience. Like even when I went there and went to my friend and I was like, okay, what do you have for me? Can I do something? Can I help out? And he showed me in the back of the restaurant. He's like, there's a dishwasher here. You can do that. I'm like, yes, I'm starting tomorrow, right? I'm doing that. He's like, I'm joking, George. I'm not gonna let you be. I'm like, trust me, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for anything. And that was my mindset going into it. That I sort of wanted to experience the life, go out of my comfort zone a little bit. And then when a period passed, I said, okay, let me go back. Finish my law degree, my thesis, and let's see what future brings. I always have it in the back of my mind. I try to go back to New York every once in a while just to reinvigorate that flame, but found a career that's been very fulfilling instead.
Yeah, that's amazing. But you know what I find unique about that? Because if you just finished the law studies and you come to New York and say, well, I got a dishwasher job here. Some people would have said, nah, do you have anything further up the food chain, maybe further up? So you looked at that as basically a stepping stone. Let me learn it from the bottom because that's basically the bottom, and I'm going to build it up from there. Yeah,
absolutely. And a lot of my family, friends, I'm like, George, where are you going? You're not good as a waiter or something. Working in the restaurant business, you're not gonna manage. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go prove everyone wrong. It's not that's what the career that I'm looking for, but I can do anything just to sort of do what I have envisioned to do while being in New York, and it sort of set me up with skills. You're from New York yourself. You know what the city will put in you as a mindset. It'll grind you down, but it'll make you tough.
You mentioned sales. My first job out of university was in sales, and I always look back on that as a foundation because there was an older salesperson who won every award every month. He'd always win it. And one of the things he told me is that one of the things you learn from sales is that the sales process doesn't begin until the person says no. Then you find out who the salesperson is. And I never forgot that because in your business, as in my business, you're trying to sell someone an idea or a solution. They may not buy it. What do you come back with to keep that conversation going? And that's what I've always found about sales, because I think it's the old school sales. Now, it's probably different now because you don't have people carrying a bag and selling anymore because you got the marketing digital approach. But you learn from that. You learn to knock on doors. You learn to just explore people. And did you kind of pull that up from your sales space?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been recommending to anyone in any area of business that having certain sales skills is pivotal to anything that you want to do. Whether you're selling yourself personally at an interview or trying to create a vision for a product that you're working on, you're in sales. So skills in that area are quite required for any sort of business. And for me, breaking that barrier and talking with strangers on a daily basis and trying to consult them their career and what's their best step forward had been a very formative experience in terms of not only understanding the skills on how to sell effectively, but also understand, empathize with who I'm talking with, what their career goals are, what their needs are, and then, offering a proper solution as a consultant.
Yeah. And a lot of that comes from listening, because one of the things in sales, you listen to what the person is saying, as opposed to always jumping in. You listen, and then you try and I'm going to say rearrange your words. In other words, to try to come back in and try and navigate, through that. But the question I want to answer, where did that mindset come from? I can go there. Your parents are saying, okay, you got the Lord, my son's going to be a Lord. You go to, and all of a sudden now you're washing dishes and you're learning another field. Where did that mindset come from to say, I'm just going to try this and I'm going to see where it leads. I'm going to try this. Was there anything in your life coming up that said, explore?
Well, if I can try now in hindsight sort of to evaluate where that comes from, maybe I had been sort of blessed to be in a family that we traveled a lot when I was young.
Okay.
So I always had that excitement of exploring new places, new cultures, meeting people. So that has always been sort of ingrained in me as a desire. Other things that I can look back on, perhaps I've been surprised on how adaptable I've always been to sort of new realities or new circumstances.
Okay.
I've never been kind of okay to stay in my comfort zone. Not that there's a itching desire just to change, but if I'm presented with a new reality, I'm like, okay, that's it. I move on. What do I need to do? So that has always been kind of a personality trait, if I can say, kind of a can-do attitude. And luckily, I've worked with leaders that also have noticed that personality in me and have nurtured it.
Yeah. So in looking back and making that transformation, and now you're back in Europe and you're VP of a company. If you look back on that period, what major challenge did you face? A leadership challenge that you faced, and you were able to analyze it and maybe come out on the other side of it?
Well, one major thing, of course, comes to mind, COVID-19. It definitely wasn't a sort of like a earthquake and kind of a biggest challenge in my career, apart from how it impacted all of us, I'm guessing psychologically, our health, our worries. It was probably something that, in theory, it should have decimated our industry in terms of L&D and the way our business worked, which majority, 99%, was teaching, delivering trainings face-to-face. That's what we did. That's what we were good at. At that moment, I had been given an enormous responsibility from our owners to be in charge of the project named Churchill that period, in sort of making decisions vertically across the board and making sure that we get through it. Kind of a defense tactic, and navigating that business pivot into the virtual online space, if you remember, along with managing the team locally here, their mindset to really focus on things that they can control, and being productive towards sort of a common goal is really something that gave me massive strides into developing the skills that I previously perhaps did not have.
Yeah. Well, you had, but they had not begun to grow. You had it there someplace. It was sitting there somewhere.
Yeah. Like I said, luckily we had leaders that probably saw that I didn't know myself, and I rose to the challenge. It was now looking back, it was fun and a great experience, but at that time it was a big challenge. Yeah.
How would you describe your leadership style based on everything you've gone through, from starting where you started from and completely changing, switching careers? How would you describe your leadership style? Because now you manage a large operation.
I don't think I have a style per se that I sort of would attach to myself, but if I try to consider, if I look back to each role that I had, starting from the beginning and with experience adding to that skill set, like let's say initially as a first-time manager, when I stepped into that role, I was kind of learning to be that exemplar, that person that would embody certain ideas, principles towards the team, and looking to inspire others to act the same. That's always been the case with regards to first-time managers. And one of the early principles that I've had, I think, very, very early on, was always focusing on what's the company objective, what's there that needs to get done, rather than my own personal objectives and my ego. So placing the company first, and then yourself. It always, at least in my taste, it always absolutely has worked out to set you on a course of success. Kind of take care of the work, and the work will take care of you. Which afterwards, traversed into a servant type of leadership when I was in middle management, being a mentor to the department, to the team, and kind of I felt at that time I really was focused into prioritize the needs and the growth of others. Whatever they need, I do that first. Then I look after myself and whatever I need to get done. Which after a while, then later on in my career, I started to think that, okay, servant leadership is fantastic, but at a certain point of time, you need to stop being kind of a time teller to the team, so that they don't always look up to you on a daily basis. What's the time? And start becoming a watchmaker. That's a Jim Collins quote that they've done, and it's sort of like try to build up the team so they can grow and become the leaders that they can be in their own right. So not just looking up to me or relying on me for decisions, and so they can grow into that senior role themselves.
Yeah, to gradually pull them away, and I bring it to a certain point, and then you take up and move it from there. So talk about mentors and your growth. As long as I've known you, I've never known the story. I knew the story about New York, but I never knew the story about the restaurant and all that kind of thing. I didn't understand that. But one of the reasons that we have the show is for people to talk through. Started here, this didn't work out, or this worked out, but I moved here, and I keep moving on to that. What about mentors in your life? As you were going through these transitions to try and figure out what is going to be next. Do I go back to Macedonia? Do I stay in New York? Or who was your sounding board? Who were you? Who was your mentor?
Well, in terms of some people that have shaped me, kind of my development professionally, I always initially mention my father. He's always been sort of my idol and someone that I've looked up to kind of professionally. He had been previously in as a C-level executive in the airline industry. So he had instilled in me, I think, a lot of the traits that have been very much about how you do anything is how you do everything, and that's his motto to this day. I don't care if I'm asking him a recipe for any dish. He's gonna go all philosophical on me and send five pages documented and research. So that's been always kind of a role model for me on how do you approach everything. Whatever you're doing, do it 200%. Do it with love. Do it with purpose.
Okay.
And of course, professionally afterwards in my career, there's two people that I think. You ask anyone at LEORON, they're going to mention the same two people. And I wouldn't go further than our two founders, our chairwoman, Val Yusufi, and our CEO, Arvind Yusufi. They're kind of our magic yin-yang to the organization, providing the vision. So starting from the first interview that I mentioned, and now to this day, they're providing kind of an example for our development. And they've impacted so many lives at LEORON internally, externally with our clients. So they deserve a massive credit, and they've still today remain my biggest mentors.
Yeah, because you folks took an idea in training and development, because I've been living in the Middle East now 9 to 10 years, and started from basically training people and you built up this huge operation that's all across the globe. And that's visionary when you think about that, and having those people, having that kind of leadership that sets the example. And I think that drives a lot of the professionalism inside of LEORON, because I've worked with LEORON for a long time. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They are truly, like you said, you can be in an industry that's doing well. You can set up an idea initially that might start well, but keeping it for 15 years with most of the team that started in the beginning still with the company and still loving what they do. Yeah. That takes, like you said, you need to ingrain certain values, and they have the work rate that is then mimicked and traverse down to the whole organization. And like you said, I think we're a big mirror on what they've tried to build, and we're hopefully continuing that mission forward.
Mm. Yeah, because your Christmas parties are known for having the Christmas party. I say holiday party because I see the photos and I talk to the people that was there, and everybody has a great time. But that's a great networking opportunity, and people are there because they want to be there. They want to be there to celebrate a company, and you have to build that inside of an organization. Because you mentioned that earlier, talking about culture. How do you maintain culture 15 years and you still have that level of excitement, throughout the company? What is your advice on building culture, a sustainable culture? We talk about servant leadership. If you have leaders of that type, how do you build that? Because that's kind of something that a lot of companies are looking for. And it's not just about the business. People really enjoy what they do.
That's true, and I mean it takes years to build that type of culture. Rightfully, we've been quite known into celebrating our successes, which has been largely a very successful trajectory during the past 15 years. If we can discount COVID as a minor blip there, but and we've always had. I mean, our owners and founders have had that capacity to really connect with our team. I don't usually like to say the word being as a part of a family, but honestly, that's just something that how it feels like. Culture, on the other hand, it's beyond all these things, which is good. It brings people together. It keeps people together. But I do think that it's been our purpose and why we're doing what we're doing. That's been something as a leading guy for this 15 years. So. That purpose of boosting the competency levels or the competitiveness of our clients and working with them, helping with them on a daily basis. I think that's something that's been resonating with a lot of our employees that stayed, and getting that gratification into working with large organizations or even individuals on helping them on their path towards continuous learning. I think that's been the key to the culture that we've built out here.
Yeah, in the sessions that I run, not only for LEORON but other clients, I will ask executives, how do you learn? Because you're consistently developing and helping other people to learn, but I put it back on them as leaders. How does a leader learn? How does George learn? How does George say? Because not only your portfolio is across the board. And if you look into those verticals, everything is being disrupted, whether it's AI, new approaches, new competencies, and all of those. So how does George stay in the zone, the learning zone, to say, spend some time, here's what I'm going to do for the next hour or two? How do you learn?
Well, looking at it sort of as a broader picture of what I need on a yearly or the next period or the next position that I have, I usually, of course, prioritize some of the learnings that we have on our disposal. Like you said, we have dozens and dozens of training programs, international certifications in different areas. So it's been kind of a blessing that we've had access to become certified in certain different fields, ones that would pertain to what we're doing, or maybe just feed our curiosity as professionals. So that's been something that on a yearly basis I do. I try to attend conferences several times per year. That's been a major learning passion. However, on a daily basis, like you said, in terms of creating a habit, I always had a niggling remorse this past 10 years or so that I'm not reading as much as I would have loved to be able to read, and at a consistent basis. So it's not a book at a vacation or during a flight. And the way that I sort of fixed that the last couple of years is that I switched to audiobooks. And now I have a daily morning routine where whether I'm doing my rowing on my rowing machine, so I managed to pump up about half an hour each morning, doing the regular stuff that I always had been doing, and listening to Jim Collins, John Dewar, Marshall Goldsmith, and that's been the new habit that I'm proud to say that I've established. And now countless books afterwards, I can always go back and do the same thing.
Yeah, I was always a reader, and even now, when I'm in Amsterdam now, just arrived here a few hours ago. I haven't had a chance to get dressed, anything like that, but I always have a stack of stuff to read. But one of the things I found that I love audiobooks, and I've been doing audiobooks for some time, and this way I can stay in the zone, but I don't sit there and keep going down through, making notes, hear it, all those kinds of things. So I think that's kind of the new version of learning, is, because at one time I'd go through books. Somebody would say, this is a great book. I'd read that book. But what advice would you give leaders to step away and develop you, because you're developing others? What advice would you give leaders to take some kind of approach in developing themselves?
Well, I don't think, regardless if it's leaders or anyone, that I would advise is you always need to stay curious. You always need to learn. The moment that that curiosity sort of drains out and you stop learning, it's where you stop evolving. And if you think at 1 second that, okay, I know everything there is to know about this position or about the company, you're not able to contribute to that organization any longer. So it's consistent. We learn till we're alive. How was that saying? So feeding that curiosity, regardless of what works for you personally. So like I said, where it's daily listening on audiobooks, where it's reading, where it's attending training programs several times per year, or e-learning programs, or working with coaches, with mentors, anything to keep the mind or the muscle that's here, that's driving us, always exercise. That's would be my advice.
Yeah, I think that's important. But you look at people in our industry, every day we are around learning. Someone's learning this type course. I could be facilitating a course. And so that's kind of ingrained in us. And one of the things I talk about when I speak to leaders, if I'm giving a speech, that everybody's got to get back into that zone of learning. My daughter called me in her senior year, and she had been up for 2-3 nights studying for finals and all these kinds of things. And she said, Dad, you know what? She said, when I get this degree, I'll never pick up a book again in my life. She said, because I've learned out. So I'm thinking, I said, how can I respond to that? So I said, let me give you a piece of advice. I said, the learning doesn't begin until you get into a profession or whatever it is you want to do. And that's where the real learning comes in, but it's a different type. You're trying to get better at what you do. So it may not be picking up a book, but it may be in a different type directions in doing that, because we think that we go to university and we get out and we get that paper and put it on the wall. We think it's over with. No.
It's always what's next. What's the next thing that I can do? And just to give an example of how our, let's say, chairwoman right now, she's attending an executive MBA program at London Business School. And for all of us in the organization, okay, if you can find the way to do that for a year, all of us at the organization. So that, like I said, it trickles down as an example. And you hear and you meet a lot of people. Ron, we've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of our clients and delegates that come there. You would see people with 30 years of experience, managing big corporation companies. That curiosity is still there. Yeah, and you see it in them that, okay, what's next? My next one, I want to take with you this course and that program. And I'm like, that's the way forward. You see the curiosity in them, and then you can't be the one to say, okay, I'm done. I got 2 certifications. I did my master's, and that I'm done with learning. It's a never-ending process.
Yeah, I got all the plaques on the wall. No more plaques. I'm cool. I'm just going to keep coasting through life. No, it doesn't work that way. And you know, you talked about your chairwoman. She attended one of my sessions on HRBP, executive strategy session of HRBP years ago. And then when I found out, when she introduced herself, and I'm thinking to myself, I said, okay, founder, major company, HRBP. But I'm saying, so why should not she do HRBP? If that's a product you're offering, learn what it's about. Learn that area of expertise. So by you telling me that she's, you know, in this London Business School, I'm not surprised, because I saw that in interacting with her over those 3 days. I think we were together in trying to put all that together. But this is life. I mean, you know, when you came out of school, one of the things you mentioned, you said you came out of school and you were going to take a break, but the next thing was going to be law, and that was going to be it. Have you ever looked back on what would have happened if I would have chosen law versus doing? Any thoughts? Okay, I'm fine.
No. I mean, no regrets whatsoever. Sometimes, you know, as fun as it is sometimes to look back, I've never been a person that believes in either, you know, a wrong decision or I took a right decision there. You know, and that's not an ego thing in terms of I never did wrong or anything like that. It's just that the decisions we make accordingly to the judgment and the, you know, mindset that we had at that particular time. There's no other decision that could have been made.
Yeah.
Even the perceived, let's say, wrong ones, you learn from that, and that shape you as you grow afterwards. Even more memorable than the right ones that we like to pat ourselves on the back. So like I said, I made that decision because I knew that maybe long term it would not be a fulfilling career to pursue law and to be one of the many here in Macedonia and a plaque on the wall that says, you know, I'm just a lawyer. It never excited me to that extent, so that's why I took that decision and never looked back.
Yeah.
However, you know, the law studies have helped me massively, building up my mindset. So I'm very grateful for that. But as a career, no, never had any doubt.
Yeah, I've had people on this show who I say I know more lawyers that are not doing lawyering. I know more doctors that are not doing doctoring anymore. We had a doctor on a while back who was a transplant surgeon, and he just got burned out, and he pulled out and started writing books and novels and doing other things and coaching other doctors at the point of burnout because they followed that career. But at a certain point in time, they were almost burned out as a result of that. So I think it's cool that someone says, you know what, I'm going to start out here and I'm going to maybe do something else at a career change at some point in life and looking at that. So the question I wanted to ask leading into that, if you could go back and coach your younger self and give advice to your younger self, what would that be? What would you tell the young version of Gigi?
I've had this question being asked several times. I always, again, because I have that mindset that I don't regret anything, I wouldn't try to change things or, oh, you should have done that or go that direction. Maybe I think I've had a wonderful journey so far, and it's going forward. Maybe I just tell myself that, listen, you know, everything will work out. Don't worry. Keep on pushing forward. Everything will work out. I don't think there's anything much that I would sort of direct otherwise, or, you know, you made a mistake there, do that. No, absolutely.
Yeah. Because one of the questions I was going to ask, but you kind of answered that, is that when you look back on your life, one decision that you made, if you could go back and change the decision, what would it be? But you kind of walked us through that. I'm cool. I took steps. I made decisions. Lots of times everybody didn't agree with it, but in the end, I knew what was there for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even if it didn't turn out well, you know, you don't linger on that. You don't dwell on it. Continue moving forward. What's our next step?
Yeah. So what are you most excited about at this stage of your life? You know, we get into the routine, successful, and is the excitement still there? What are you excited about for the future?
I'm excited about tomorrow. Excited about the next quarter, the next year.
Okay.
What we can still do as an organization. What I can help towards us impacting in the market, expanding to new markets. There's so many things that that I've witnessed how we've evolved this past period that gives me no single doubt that I know that we're not going to be the same in 3, 4, 5 years time. So there's lots coming forward. Outside of LEORON, of course, the AI revolution that's been going on that I think is still on the beginning of the curve, that we are yet to see the final result on how things will shape up. So there's tons of things to be excited about, and luckily, like if you have that mindset of continuous growth, learning to do more, to be more, there's always things to be happy and excited about in the future.
Yeah. So one of the questions I want to throw at you, I'm going to give you a scenario. You're speaking at a leadership conference, and you have C-level people in there, and the entire audience, for the most part, are C-level people. What advice would you give them about building an organization that's culturally driven, people focused? What piece of advice would you give that level of executive? Because a lot of the times you go on a website, it says all the things, purpose, people, and you ask the people that work there, it's the worst place in the world. Because one of my prior roles, I was a CEO for Great Place to Work in Dubai, in Middle East. And you talk to some of these people, and say, we do everything right. We got everything. We got this. Here's what our website. And you look at the website, and then you look up at people sitting in the meeting, and they won't even make eye contact because they know it's all just talk. What advice would you give leaders about authenticity and understanding and all of that?
In terms of authenticity and what I would, potentially advise, maybe. I'm trying to imagine that it won't be a grateful task for me to advise a group of C-level executives. But what I found in my personal experience is that authentic part is crucial. What does that mean? Is that you need to lead how you want them to be. So you need to be that example in everything that you do, and then all of these values trickle down to the whole organization. If you try to direct it from okay, these are the things that you want to do, but I'm on other side of the world, I don't care what's going on with the company, that's never going to work, because it's always seen, it's always felt. You set up the values and you remain curious for your own team and for your own company. If you are there for them, if you ask and invest in them, then I think that takes up on a life in its own, and I think they will take care of that company same as you would. So that's kind of, at least in my idea, that I would recommend.
Yeah, you know what? You told a story about your father, and as you were walking through that, I said, you sounded just like your father. You sounded just like the father that advice your father gave you, and you going to this conference, and you giving the same kind of advice coming back. So it kind of it's stuck.
It's what what you've seen that works, and I've seen all these things being applied at work, and that's the only thing that I would literally just say to everyone. And my father would be super happy to hear that as well.
Is your father still alive? You're gonna let him listen into the show, especially that comment, because as you were walking through that, and you had just talked about him and the way he would go and describe something. If you asked a simple question, he'd go and it was the same kind of response to that. And this is why I was smiling when you were saying that. I said, because I got to zing you on that. So you sounded just like you said your father was.
I gotta admit, I'm still using him as a soundboard to this day professionally, and he loves it that I'm coming back to him for advice and on little things. But
yeah. So
I admit a lot of it is him.
That's cool. That's cool. One of the goals of the show, and so we started right around COVID. Let's just do something. And we've had now maybe 4 to 5 years of it. Every Friday we have the same kind of approach. But the keys and the foundation of the CEO series is about people, law school, dishwasher, senior executive, heart surgeon, lung surgeon, burned out, switch, no more surgery, moving into something else. A lawyer who was who we had a gentleman on, Dr. Call, was an auto mechanic, but he always wanted to go back to school to be a doctor. And eventually he said, you know what, I'm going to give this up. He had two stores, changed those stores, went back to school and became a doctor later in life. And now he's an emergency room physician in the Middle West. So these kind of stories come about. So as we begin the process of closing out, would you want to leave some advice for the audience, a takeaway to the audience? Because we have global leaders listening every Friday. We have MBA students, which is a part of their curriculum, to listen to the show every Friday. So what closing thoughts would you have for the audience?
Okay. Closing thoughts. I mentioned it earlier in our discussion, that curiosity bit. That's, I think, the crucial factor. You mentioned it in some of the examples. You could have been an auto mechanic, but if you have that curiosity and that desire to, go back to school and get a medical degree, you're gonna do that. So feed into that. Step into the unknown, learn, adapt, and never stop being curious, because we always are evolving. Where we are now is never where we either were meant to be or that we will be perhaps in 5-10 years. So keep learning, keep questioning, never assume that you have all the answers, because you don't. And you and I have seen the best leaders, aren't the ones who know everything, is that are the ones that are always eager to discover more. And that's one thing that I've learned in my journey, is that curiosity is a leader's greatest asset. And one thing that if people can take away from that is that you need to keep developing always.
Okay, great. George, thank you so much for adjusting your time frame to be a guest on the show. It really means a lot. And for people that are listening in, share. We're growing our base on our YouTube channel. It's kind of a must listen on Friday mornings. And for the people that's watching the show, I'm not dressed. I just got into my room. I had a 6-hour flight to get into Amsterdam. And I got here and my room was not ready until 10 minutes before we went live to record this show. And so this is why I'm like this today, as opposed to one of the things I want to say about George. Every time you see George, he's impeccably dressed. He looks as if he's just stepped off of GQ magazine, or GQ magazine said, "Where's our model?" Because our model is not yet always impeccably dressed. So I figured I'd throw that out as we close.
Right back at you, Ron. I think there's always a 5-10 second hold up whenever we meet. We appreciate each other's style for a bit, and then we go right back into catching up on where we are.
Sounds good.
Right back at you.
So hang on for a second. We're going to close out, and a few things I wanted to discuss as we close out. After we close out, so hang on.
Take the CEO series with you anywhere, anytime. All episodes are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and major streaming platforms. It's not just an interview. It's a masterclass in leadership.